we've been seeing magic morning moments all over, and that's the title of our talk. And at For Sigmatic, we've been talking about magic morning moments all month long. And basically what we're trying to encourage is like how it's more than like new year, new me. It's like how we start every day is the foundation for how our day is going to go. And the culmination of our days is our weeks and our months and our life.
Yeah.
And so it was really, the timing with this webinar and with bringing you on was really like, because you're such an expert in the morning. And so I'd love just to hear like and maybe you'll get through it, and talk about it throughout, but just that theme of like what a magic morning moment looks like, and whether that's, the self-care piece of it, the nutrition piece of it, the mental piece of it. Like there's so much that can make a morning magical, and it can look different for everyone. But just really wanted to highlight, like we were so specific. We got to do this in the morning. Like you are an owner of the morning routine.
Yeah. And this touches on a concept that I'll dig into a little bit more, but I have this concept called pre-charge instead of recharge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by pre-charge, hey, Ashley, what I mean by pre-charge is that if we actually do the self-care routine first, then we're much more able to handle whatever comes to us during the day. And so for me, that I found, especially as an entrepreneur and especially as my businesses grew and I had this big team and all these people who counted on me for their livelihood, I realized that it was like absolutely essential that I showed up as best as I could, as fully as possible. It doesn't mean perfect. I'm never going to say perfect. It's impossible. But for me, morning routines, it has absolutely shifted my life. I get up really early. And that is just something that has also come over time. But let me just say, I don't have young kids. I'm sure many of you do. So I'll also provide a disclaimer that I'm all about seeking inspiration outside yourself, but seeking answers within. So I will share what has worked for me, but many of the things that work for me might not work for you. And that's okay. So I really want to just kind of like push that back to you as well and say, take what works, leave the rest, look at your unique situation. I hope that there's many things you can pull and some might not be aligned, but I love doing this in the morning. I'm much fresher in the morning, but for me, it is just like my non-negotiable, how I fill my cup so I can give to people from the overflow all day. So we'll definitely touch on this a little bit more in my deck. So
I love that. Okay, we'll jump in. We're ready.
All right. So I'm using a different, hold on, let me pull this up real quick. Let me just see. Okay. Give me a second to just get this set up for us so I can see everything. And are you all seeing my slides okay? Let me pull up the chat. Does everything look okay? Just let me know in the chat. Yes. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So, yes, we're talking about morning routines today. I'm so honored to be here with For Sigmatic. They didn't tell me to talk about my relationship with For Sigmatic, but I will just say I've been using the products for a long time. I've been grateful to have them as sponsors when we went on tour, and was so excited about the new stuff. You guys actually sent me this, maybe it was like 3 weeks ago or a month ago. And you have no idea how hard I had to work to make sure that there was enough left for me to like actually make a drink by this webinar. My boyfriend's like, I left you a little bit of every one of them, but just like maybe one drink. I'm like, okay, great. So I made this like a cacao coffee and I put a couple of drops of peppermint oil on, and so it's really delicious. Anyway, all right, so we'll jump in. And I'll just give you a really quick kind of background on how I get into this. I have a few different businesses. Self-Care Society is like the Peloton of self-care. So I really found that there was a gap in people having a consistency around self-care as well as a community. And so we created it's live self-care classes community. It's been really, really fun. We launched it earlier this year, and I know I have some of my Self-Care Society community here. So I love seeing all of you. Model Meals is like healthy meal delivery business. All of my businesses are focused in self-care. I believe that what you eat, as many of you know, or you wouldn't be here, what we put in our body is like an extremely important element of self-care and how we function. So I'm a big advocate for that. And I've been working as what the fashion industry calls a plus size model. But I just call myself a body positive model. I'm about a size 12, 14, 5'10". And I've been doing that as a model for the last 10 years. So The way that I maintain all the things I have on my plate and a big life, and do so with grace and a bit of peace and not being stressed out all the time, is through my self-care process. My life becomes unmanageable when I do not practice my self-care. So it's become really, really critical. And I'm not the only person that is on the line, it's my team, it's all the people that I love. So in terms of my story, here I am over in homecoming. I was 14 and I've got butterfly clips and all that good stuff. And I struggled with food in my body most of my life. I, was chronically dieting. I really saw in the media and didn't see anyone that looked like me, and decided really young that I was not enough. And so got into, dieting, and then was bulimic for quite some time and got into drugs, and really, really struggled with my body, thinking that in order for me to be worthy, to be enough, that I needed to lose weight, I needed to look a certain way. And so I decided young that, I'm going to be a model. That's my passion. That's my purpose. And followed that for a long time, until I finally just got so exhausted with that effort, that journey towards being something that I wasn't. And I surrendered. And it was very interesting. I was living in LA at the time, and I surrendered to who I exactly was, my size 14 body. And a couple of weeks after that happened, or a couple months after that happened, I was approached at a bank and asked if I'd ever thought about plus size modeling. And I ended up signing with an agency. And I always say that's a moment where I really got to remind myself that when you stop trying to be what you're not, you get to the authentic you, the thing that you've always been trying to be, comes a lot easier when we stop trying to be who we aren't. And so here I am, I moved to New York City modeling, and then moved, got myself into a lot of debt, but had done the whole 30, and it really changed my life. So I started cooking out of my apartment in New York, and I started delivering meals to people. And it was fun. It was my first taste of entrepreneurship, but I was really struggling. I was 3 months late on my rent, and had to move back home to Orange County and live in my parents' garage right here, where I launched my first business. And I was nearly 30 years old. And for me, it was a real ego slap, but it ended up being the best thing that I did, because I was really struggling at the time with my binge eating, 10,000 calories in a sitting as a way to numb out. And I remember thinking, what would it take for me to get to the end of the day and not binge? And I knew that, like, when I work out, when I eat well, when I practice mindfulness, when I get enough sleep, that I feel better. And so I wrote it down, and I called it my self-care checklist. It was these 4 things. And I decided, I'm just going to check a box on these things every day and see if anything changes. And what I realized was that all that was missing was this system of accountability. And so this self-care checklist that started as a tool for me to stop binge eating turned into this catalyst to totally transform my life, because I was able to start reprogramming how my brain worked, and, sort of followed it and followed my dreams, and grew Model Meals into an 8-figure business, and launched Self-Care Society this year. And it's been quite a fun journey. So we're going to cover a few things today. We're going to talk about some basic self-care mottos, which we touched on when we started. We're going to talk about systems for accountability, the most important choice when it comes to morning routines, the foundational 4 of self-care, traditional self-care practices that maybe some of you are using. And then this, I think, will be really fun. 8 self-care practices that you're probably not doing. Maybe if you're in Self-Care Society, you are, but you probably aren't doing. And then we have a little fun, little free bonus for you as well. So this is something I said before, and I just want to remind you, is to seek inspiration outside of yourself, but seek answers within. And when I say that, I mean, I will share my experience, but it might not be yours. So take what you want, leave the rest. Full permission to do that. So self-care basics, a couple things. So filling your cup first. This is morning routines, right? The idea, and we'll use my beautiful drink here. The idea here is that you find out, what does it take to fill my cup? Not just till it's full, but overflowing. And you can think of your morning routine like this. And so as you think about, okay, what do I want to do in the morning that's going to really empower me throughout the day? You might think, I want to get enough sleep, a little meditation, maybe stretching, maybe I practice gratitude, and maybe I, drink my coffee, my 4 Sigmatic, right? And what you just did was, you didn't just fill your cup, you overflowed it. And what our goal is to give to everyone else, everything outside of ourselves, from the overflow all day, so that our routines keep us full. and we end the day full instead of in backwash. Because what I found so often is that so many of us give and give and give and give all day, and then the people who are left with the backwash at the end of the day are our loved ones. It's like our kids and our partners and ourselves get the backwash. And so the goal with any morning routine is to really fill yourself up so that you are giving from the overflow and not your depleted last sort of energy. And I mentioned this in the beginning, this idea of pre-charging so you don't have to recharge. What if, like, does it feel revolutionary to suggest that we could actually prep ourselves enough that we never have to burn out? You know, like in today's busyness, hustle culture, feels a little revolutionary to say that. But the concept of any morning routine, I feel, is to pre-charge so you don't have to recharge. One thing that's really helped me, another thing that I got from the recovery community, is this idea that, you know, we only need to take things one day at a time. And so it's really, it can be really overwhelming and stressful to think, I want to build a great life. I want to build this amazing life. And what does that look like? And that's really overwhelming. But what you can look at is, what does it take to build a great day? Because a great life is really just a series of great days. That's it. So stay in the day, stay in the hour if you have to sometimes, and decide what is your recipe for a great day. And that's going to start with some sort of morning routine, whether it's, you know, 2 minutes in the closet hiding from your toddler, or, you know, you have more time to be a little bit more luxurious with it. So, or it's little things throughout the day too. And the last thing is this concept of micro habits. So change, lasting change comes from empowerment, not shame. Meaning, if you keep trying to change yourself because you don't like yourself or you're hating on yourself, it becomes really, really hard to actually want to keep doing something. And especially if we set ourselves up for failure. So an example I like to use is, say you're trying to pick up a meditation habit and you say, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes every day. And you know, it's a busy Friday and you meditate and you only get 15 minutes in. Something happens, you can only get 15 minutes in. You walk away and you're like, dang, I only got 15 minutes. I didn't hit my goal. I'm lame. I'm not good at this. And we quit. We don't stick to things that we don't feel like we're good at. Versus, what if you set a goal to meditate at least 5 minutes a day and you meditated for 15 minutes? You walk away feeling like a rock star. And the more we can set ourselves up for feeling good, the more we will come back and do it again. So many days of 5 or 10 minutes is much better than a couple days of 20 and then falling off, right? So micro habits are a big piece of transformation for me. Oh, this is a fun little video. Let's see if we can get it to play. Will it play? Anyway, that's okay. So this is our little self-care checklist. This is a system for accountability that we use in Self-Care Society. And one of the biggest things that I noticed as I was speaking to, as I kind of told my story, was this idea that we live in this culture where we have these this excess of knowledge and not enough systems for integration. And what happens when we collect knowledge and we don't put it into action is we actually end up in more shame and guilt than we started. And that's not the goal, right? When we go out to learn something or listen to a podcast or show up to something like this, and then we don't have any sort of system of integrating it, then what happens is we kind of feel like, oh, like I know better and I'm not doing better. And I'm really, really adamant. I have definitely, I think Aubrey mentioned this, everyone needs grace for themselves every day. And that is absolutely 1000% true. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of really tiny changes over time, of real empowerment, of real self-love. It's absolutely essential. But we have to have systems for integration. So for me, the self-care checklist today looks a little different than it did 6 years ago when I was writing it in my parents' garage. But it's really a way for me every day to keep committed to the things that matter and actually to stay consistent. So this is the big one. And when we talk about morning routines, this is the reality. Your morning routine starts with your evening routine. So while we are going to talk about morning routines for most of this, I do want to let you know that more important than what you do in your morning routine is what you decide to do the evening before. And so what you're going to, I want you to think about is how this looks like, what this looks like for you. And everyone's different. But for me, it's having a specific unplug time, right? For me, for me, the biggest choice I make is the time that I unplug, put my phone in a different room and get my body in bed. Because I'm usually tired enough to fall asleep, right? And so for me, if I don't get enough sleep, then I'm kind of sacrificing self-care. We tend to live in this culture as well, where it's hustle, hustle, and sacrifice sleep. And that is not what I'm about. I think sleep is the number one self-care thing. So I want you to know that when I tell you that I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. each day, it's not because I sleep for 4 or 5 hours. It's because I go to bed early enough. And the reason that I chose to do this, and again, this might not work with your specific schedule, but the reason I chose to do this was I realized that at nighttime, I really wasn't doing much productive, or wasn't really doing anything that was really like nourishing my soul. And I felt like if I could trade in a couple of those evening hours by going to bed earlier and get up a little bit earlier, I would have a lot more time for myself in the morning before anyone bothered me. So that's why I get up super early. So a little bit more on morning routines. I'm a big advocate for scheduling things in. And these are just kind of screenshots of what my calendar looks like. I have repeating events, and these sort of just help me to stay really accountable to those margins, my own self-care, my own self-love, right? So, the green is my self-care color. And you'll see at 5 p.m., I mean, I go to bed really early because I like to get up so early. But you can see like these are all unplugged hours for me, taking a bath, doing some evening self-care, calling my mom, unplugging, winding down. It's on there because what happens when we don't make time for it, like, we should be scheduling our self-care with the same importance that we schedule our commitments to other people or to our boss or to our business. And so I put this on here because it's so much easier to not schedule over when it's so visual, right? And so for me, no, it doesn't always go this way. It's never perfect in this way. But for me, it's a guideline that really, really helps me to be realistic with my time. We all have 24 hours in the day, and we can look and, see what works. Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, I don't have that much time, I have kids, I have family, that's totally normal. And I want to really honor that. It doesn't have to be this long. It can be 15 minutes. I teach people about actually a 5-minute self-care checklist where they do 5 1-minute self-care tasks. So you might do 1 minute of stretching, write down gratitude for 1 minute, drink a big glass of water for a minute. You might get outside in nature for a minute. And then maybe you're going to, take your supplements or something. And that's a beautiful 5-minute self-care routine. So there's a lot of ways that we can do this without, having to make it super fancy or take up a lot of time. One of the things that really, really helps me is, I love that you guys are working with the class. I just saw that. I love the class. Very aligned with my soul and what I love in Self-Care Society. Yeah, it's just been a really, really helpful thing to do to schedule like that. So I want to talk about the 4 foundational self-care elements, because I think it's really important to talk about our physical body before we do the deeper work. I think the reason that I loved Whole30 so much and sort of moving into this more mindful relationship with food was because I never realized how well my brain was actually naturally able to work when I was fueled properly. And so I'd always say when I did Whole30, it felt like someone put Drano in my brain and like it just like washed away like all of the gunk. I had been diagnosed ADHD. I had been on medicine. I had always struggled with focus and all of that. And nothing has helped my brain and my focus better than changing my lifestyle and meditation and sleep and self-care. And so it's really important, I find, to talk about the physical body first, because without our physical vessel, we can't experience the world, right? We need to be in this physical body to experience the world. So these are my top 4 physical self-care things. And these feed into your ability to do the deeper, more, not woo-woo, but some of that more deep, expansive inner work. We need the physical body to be in place. So we talked about rest. I think it's the most important thing. Movement is a great way to move our emotional energy through our body. It's not just about how you look. It's about your well-being. It's about your mental health. Nourishment, hydration, we all know that. We wouldn't be 4 Sigmatic fans if we didn't. But nourishment, what we put in our body, how we take care of it, what we consume. And then mindfulness, for me, that looks like meditation. It looks like unplugging, all that sort of stuff. So these are just the 4 basics that I'm sure you're familiar with. And then these are a few traditional morning routine practices that I practice that I'm sure you're also familiar with. So, meditation, taking supplements, for me, prayer. I like to pray kind of at the beginning of my meditation, and just it's for me really more than anything, it's just an ability to remind myself that I don't have to do everything alone. So it doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter, like, it's not about that. It's really just about asking for support. You can write it in your journal, you can text it to your partner, whatever it is, but asking for support. And then a couple other things, journaling. I really like to do morning pages, get things out. I feel like I have never tapped into my own deeper self more than when I journaled and seeing what came out of my pen. So that's been a beautiful practice for me, as well as, movement, which I mentioned, nourishment, which I mentioned. So these are all things that are part of my morning routine that I'm sure, you're familiar with. Now, the next thing, this is where we have some exciting new stuff, or things that you probably haven't heard of or aren't doing, and some practices that have really, really transformed my life over the time that I've been, practicing them. So on my self-care checklist, I have a variety of different things, but I'll talk about first the vivid vision. And this is a concept I learned from a friend of mine, Dr. Cleopatra. And I wrote out a sort of, you can imagine you're writing a journal entry from the future, and you can think about what you want your life to look like. So it could be like, I just woke up, it's an early morning, the kids are asleep, we're off to Thailand today for a trip for a couple of weeks. I have financial freedom, I'm healthier and happier than I've ever been. And I just wrote out this whole script. It's about 5 minutes in length, and I recorded it on a voice note. And every single morning as I'm making my coffee, I listen to this vivid vision, because I want to remind myself constantly about where I am headed. I always say humans are like a GPS. You don't need to know how you're going to get somewhere. You just need to know where you want to go. There's a lot of detours. There's a lot of different ways you can get there. But as long as you have a focus on where you're going, it's going to help us get there a lot easier. So this vivid vision is something that I love and practice. And I just record. And like every time, when it starts feeling stale or too redundant, you can just you can write a new one. It's super, super fun. Having a screen-free sanctuary. So this does not have to be its own room. It can be a corner of your living room. It can be like a little in your closet somewhere. It could be outside somewhere if it's not freezing where you are. But having a place that you sort of designate as being screen-free. So I call this my Zen Den. And it's a space. I have a lot of my grandmother's art in there on the walls, and I have a meditation cushion. You can't see it in this picture. And this is where I do my morning reading. I do my meditation, my prayer, just different things. I, burn incense and have special spaces for it. So this has really been a beautiful place for me to go, to not have screens, because, as an entrepreneur and just, anyone living in our modern culture, we're on screens a lot. The next thing is cycle tracking. So this has been really fun. I know it's a little woo-woo, but bear with me. You can track the moon, or if you are a woman who has a menstrual cycle, you can track your cycle. And as it turns out, we are all we all have different times of the month, different seasons of the year, where we have different varying levels of energy. So an author who speaks to this really well is Kate Northrup. She has a book called Do Less, and she talks about the different phases of our cycles. So for women, you might want to look at that. And then anyone who either doesn't have a menstrual cycle or is a man or just doesn't identify with that, using the moon is really, really incredible. And you can actually track, this is a good time for me to rest and go inward. And this is a time, where I'm meant to be outward and wrapping up, and visible. And this time is great for focusing on projects. So it's really, really interesting. The book Do Less by Kate Northrup is great. If this applies to you. And the reason I'm sharing this one specifically is because what this has taught me is it's given me permission to rest. It's given me permission to rest. And I think that is one of the most important things in our busy society, is that we go all the time. And I really needed the opportunity to be like, no, we're not supposed to be in this visibility, do all the time. That's why we have these different seasons of the year and different times. The fourth thing is a future biography. This is something I've been doing for the last 6 years, and it has totally rocked my world. Every single morning, or most mornings, I write a biography from the future. It says Danika Brysha is ... And I write this out and I think about what would I want someone to say about me in 5 years? What would that say? And I want to tell you guys, I was sitting in my parents' garage, 6 figures in debt with my mom's Toyota behind me, writing, I am rich. Money flows to me faster than I can keep track of. And I am a, multi-entrepreneur, like all these things that were so not true in the physical world for me. But it really, really helped me to step into the day and make choices based on the version of myself that I was stepping into. And so it's super, super fun. I encourage you to give it a try. Just start with your name is and see what comes out. It could be as simple as, Danika is healthy, happy, and grateful, super simple. And then the second slide here is this really simple concept. But one thing on my self-care checklist is to let the light in. And I check this off every day. And because I've really noticed that if I just take 30 seconds to open the blinds in my house, it changes my mood for the day. And it's these simple little things that are self-care. You might already be doing them, you're not realizing it. So letting the light in. A tool that really helps me when I'm feeling uncertain about what to do, as I deeply believe that we are our own wisest sources of information, is called the self Q&A journaling. So if you're unsure about kind of the next step to take or what's going on, I encourage you to open your journal and write down the question that you're wondering. What should I do about XYZ at work, right? And let your pen keep moving and answer the question immediately after you wrote the question. And you will be shocked at how much wisdom comes out of your pen from inside you about what to do. It's really fascinating. There's something about writing and it just is incredible. And then another question might come out and you'll find an answer come out. So it's very fascinating. The second to last thing we have here is this ideal day outline. So sometimes we do this in Self-Care Society where I have our community think about what they have on the calendar for the day and to write down in, kind of a rough agenda of if they were to have this same day in the most loving, nurturing, graceful way possible, what would that look like? And what they do is they remember to schedule in breaks. They remember to get out in nature. They remember to stretch or move their body. They remember to, whatever it is. And so it's taking what's on your calendar in front of you that says, I have a meeting here and I have this here and I have to pick my kids up here, and actually looking at it from an angle and a lens of self-care. And then the last piece is mindful management. And what that means to me is taking the time each day to organize your life. And I don't mean that about organizing your house. You can do that too. But what I mean is I take the time to set up, I use Asana as a project management technology. There's Monday, there's Trello, there's a lot of good stuff. And for me, I add in all these little things that I have for the day in there so that I have my wins all day, every day, and I get to check them off. That's my personality. But taking the 5 or 10 minutes to put all the things on there, what it's done is it's alleviated the stress of me worrying about forgetting anything. It helps me to really surrender to the idea of, I'm going to forget this thing. I no longer have to remember when I delegate to technology. And for me, that's a massive act of self-care. So those are some ideas. If there was one that stood out, actually I'll ask you that, which out of all of those 8 kind of newer ones, which one appeals to you most? Was there anything you're like, oh, I could do that, or anything, oh, I'm interested in trying that? What came up for you? The vivid vision. Yeah, it's a really fun one. Awesome. Patsy, scheduling breaks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so good. It's so good. Future bios, really fun. Screen-free sanctuary. Awesome, Christy. Yeah, the journaling Q&A, amazing. Yeah, good. Well, you'll have to let me know if you try them out. I wanted to share really quickly before we jump into Q&A, we have a really fun 30-day micro habit challenge with Self-Care Society. So if you don't have much time and you want to try on some of this new stuff, like I shared, all this is it's 1 5-minute or less task a day. And you just kind of can see it's like a little self-care task. So if you want to try that out, and you just go to selfcare30.com and you can download that for free. It's really fun. Self-Care 30. I'll put it in the chat here. And it's a really good way to just kind of have an idea of, some little micro habits to try and some stuff you haven't thought about, and also to really win, because I think that's the most important thing I will say is we have to set ourselves up to win, or we not fall off the wagon, or we, what's the word I'm looking for? We end up in that shame and guilt I'm talking about. And that's not our goal whenever we make positive change. So that's what I've got. I have a couple codes here if you're interested in Self-Care Society or model meals. We have a code for Sigmatic for model meals. We're in California, Arizona, and Nevada. And then we have a code for a super sweet deal, which is $9.99 for the whole month, unlimited for Self-Care Society if you want to try it. So there's a little code here if you want to screenshot before I move the slide. I would love to have you. It's a really beautiful way to stay accountable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then here we are on social media. If you want to stay in contact, I'm always in my DM. So please, please, please reach out. Let me know if I can help you with anything. And just as a little bit of encouragement is to really start small. Pick one thing from this. I mean, this was a lot of information in a quick time. So pick one thing and run with it and see what helps, see what lights you up. Shall we?
Oh my gosh, there was so much in that.
I know, I'm trying to move through it quickly. Sorry if it was a little long, but I hope it was helpful.
No, there's so much there. And yeah, I love that it's like just start. There's so many ideas so that it's not like everyone has to do this one thing. So it does look different for everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's, a few things in there that I've tried from you and just can personally attest to how powerful they are. Like I love just giving people more examples like of those micro habits. When you wake up in the morning, I used to think like, okay, I have to do the meditation and then my stretching routine and then my workout and then get outside. And it was like, you were like, no, your morning checklist should be like, get out of bed, make
Yeah.
bed, like brush your teeth, like the things that you already are doing that, like you said, you don't think are necessarily self-care. And then you start your day like feeling like you already kind of won, you're like, yeah, I'm getting after it.
Yeah. And and the thing is, you can still do those other things you wanted to do. But now when you do them, you'll be doing them with an energy of like, I'm a badass. I'm knocking this stuff out. I am overachieving. So I'm really about setting ourselves up for success, which means committing to small, tiny micro habit goals, but then let yourself do whatever you feel called to do and whatever feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that so much.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I just have to share from your presentation that like I've tried and has stuck with me so much too is like it's really easy to feel, especially lately, like we're alone and like where are the answers, and just that simple exercise, like you mentioned, of asking yourself, but in the writing format, like it is so surprising. I really would encourage everyone here today to try that. If there's one question you're like, I don't know, why am I having such a hard time with this? Or like, why am I resistant to this? And like free write. And we have so much wisdom in us that we don't give necessarily an outlet to. And so it can be another way to feel so empowered that like we know this.
Yeah. It can be shocking. I mean, it's pretty incredible that that we forget, because we live in this culture where we've grown up being told that everyone outside of us has answers. Do this, eat this, be this way, act this way, go for this job, desire this thing, like that person. And the reality is we often forget to pause and go inward and say, what do I want? What do I want? And so that's when I went in my bio, when I say I'm really big about bringing people home to themselves, it's really just like, I hope that all of this work, it's just tools about empowering us to come to actually build self-trust that can guide us towards what we need, because we are the people that know. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that because of the busyness of the hustle culture we live in, it can often be that we never slow down enough to listen in, and our answers are inside of us. We just have to create the space to listen. And if we're not creating the space through meditation, through rest, through unplugging, through taking a break, through journaling, whatever it is, then we're going to continue to ask everyone else to tell us how to live our life.
Yeah. Yeah. There's everything you're saying, it just resonates so much. And through my practice as an herbalist and nutritionist and with clients, it's like the same idea. It's like, how can we, no matter what we want to achieve, start by connecting to ourselves, and my method was, through the herbs and through nutrition, which is just one piece of it. But it's really like, yeah, so easy to search outside of yourself if you are not full, like in a physical way, in a spiritual way, an emotional way. So yeah, that filling your cup up. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And self-love and self-care are so connected. And that's why I always like to remind people is self-love is the more self-love we have, the easier it becomes to take care of ourselves. So if you're struggling with practicing self-care, if you want to work on self-love, because the more you practice, the more you have self-love, like think about who you love in this life, your pets, your kids, your partners. It's so easy to want to take care of the things that we love. And so our goal is to get to that point for ourselves. And it works vice versa. The more we practice self-care, the more we cultivate self-love, because we send ourselves the message that we're worth taking care of.
Yes. Yes. So good. Okay. We have some great questions already coming in here.
I'll try to be quick.
I know. So this first one is, how do you start or implement these micro habits at night to improve your morning routine? Like if someone's so tired and wired, how can you do that?
So I will say, if you want to I get asked a lot about like waking up early. My suggestion is like, and this kind of sucks, is like, you're going to have one tired day. You're going to have one tired day where you just force yourself to get up early, because by the time it's time to go to bed earlier than you are used to, you'll be tired enough. But in terms of at night, I would say for me, it's one habit. And that is that I unplug by 6:30. And sometimes it's 6:42 and sometimes it's 6:15. You know, I'm not like black and white like I used to be. But when I unplug by 6:30, it's like, that's the one habit. I put my phone in my closet, plugged in for the night, set my alarm. And just that for me sets up my entire next day. So I would say start there, like the unplugged ritual. Decide what time you want to wake up, reverse, 9 hours or whatever it is that you want to sleep, know what time you want to be asleep by, and then get in bed, 30 minutes to an hour before that, and maybe read or whatever it is.
I love that. This is a great question about how to manage keeping up with everything in partnership. This is from an anonymous attendee, but they're like, is Billy equally on board with self-care and all your systems?
I don't know if you can hear me right now, but no, we both have our own, and it's beautiful. We have some stuff we do together. He goes to the gym all the time. I'm more like a walks and yoga kind of gal. But we each have our own. And I think that I spent a lot of my life thinking, no, we have to do all this stuff together. But we each have our own routines. There's going to be some stuff, obviously, if my alarm goes off at 4 a.m., like he's going to hear it too. So, there has to be some understanding on that. But for the most part, we both have a similar lifestyle, of course. We both enjoy eating well, and we're both sober, and we both like to hike. And so we're health minded, but most of our self-care is individual. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We each have our own ways that really serve us.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. This last one, this has been coming up a lot, but can you just briefly explain the difference between vivid vision and a future bio?
Yeah, of course. There are two different perspectives, meaning a future biography, you can imagine someone else is writing it for you. And this I just write, and I write a different one every day. So I might write, and for me, the actual creative process of coming up with a new one every day is great. And I don't mean coming up with a new future. Like the future I want for myself is, it's the same big picture, but one day I might write about Danika Brysha is, a best-selling author, and she's a mother, and whatever. And the other day I might write Danika Brysha is happy and healthy. She's going on this trip. She's whatever. So that's as if someone else is writing it about you. A vivid vision is you imagine you're writing a journal entry. So I forget what they're called, third, first person. I'm the worst with that stuff, but basically that's the difference. The vivid vision is like, my vivid vision starts like, I just woke up after a beautiful night of sleep, which I get often. So I'm writing it like I listen to it on audio. It's a little bit longer format, and I listen to the same thing every day. The future biography is something new I write, and I write it as if someone else is thinking about me.
Okay. I love that. That's super helpful. I know you have to run. Right? We're out of time.
I'm okay. If you want to take like 5 more minutes, I'm fine.
Okay, if people have a few more minutes, if people do have to run, I'll share that we made a discount code. I mean, discount codes off the wazoo to help you be nourished in every sense of that word. The one for Sigmatic is just using Danika, Danika at foursigmatic.com, and you can get 10% off your next order. Obviously, what Danika and I are focusing on, we're both drinking plant-based protein. I just mixed the sweet vanilla with warm water and having like a creamy protein latte. But yeah, remember, one of the pieces is nourishment. There's also so much more to filling up your cup. So we have, codes for Self-Care Society to try it out, like such an awesome deal at Model Meals. We want you all to be overflowing.
All the things.
All the things. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, if you have Okay, yeah, there's been a couple questions about any tips for fitting in self-care with kids or like working at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, let me first and foremost say I don't have children, so I'm not going to pretend that I know what that's like, but I know a lot of parents that we have in our community. And actually I have parents, I don't know if Ashley's still here or whoever, but that take their classes with their kids or listen in with their kids, do it kind of together. It's pretty wholesome. It's not for like the littlest kids. But see where you can, oh, hey, Ash. I know you have kiddos, they're a little older, but you're so good about it. Yeah, so I think that with self-care with children is just not expecting yourself to make this huge fancy routine. Like it might come in 5-minute increments throughout the day, but think about it. If you can find 5-minute increments throughout the day where you can practice a few little things, that's a beautiful 15-minute routine. And what I really want to say is that it's like I said, it's not about the length of time. It's about the fact that when you take the time to do an active self-care, even if it's 1 minute of like tidying your desk, you tell yourself that you're a healthy person with healthy habits. And so you will naturally make choices that support this vision of you based on this one little action. You'll make choices all day. So it's almost like a reprogramming more than
Yeah.
it is about the actual minute you spend doing it. So I think that's really helpful. What was working from home? For me, it's just, I mean, the having a space that's separate for self-care is really helpful. For me, it's taking a ton of breaks. I walk on as many calls as I can. So any calls that aren't video, I always try and take a walk outside. It really helps me. So if I take 2 20-minute walks a day, I've walked, I get a lot of steps in. So that really helps me. And it's just little things where we can, fit it in, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea. It reminded me of a client story, which it was so funny. I'll share really briefly, but I used to work primarily with autoimmune conditions, and I had a young male I was working with, and he had so many different symptoms going on. And one of the first things we started to have him do was incorporate 1 cup of berries into his week every week. And it was so simple. It's like, how can we add before feeling, that you're depriving? And it was just, I wanted to get him to feel like he could do something and that he was
Yeah.
accomplishing it and it was fun and it was enjoyable. And after a few weeks of doing this, a cup of berries, he went to a movie and he's like, for the first time in my life, I didn't want the popcorn and soda. Like, what are in the berries? And I was like, there's nothing, it's just this beautiful, like humble realization
Yeah.
where his mindset shifted. And he was like, now I take care of my body. And
Yeah.
like I've seen this hundreds of times, in it just is that little mental shift of, like you said, like now there's a bit of self-love that comes from it.
Yeah.
And like the power of that shift from, I forget how you said it, but from shame to like empowerment makes all the difference. And it can look like
Yeah.
a million things for every different person.
I mean, it's so good. A healthy life is just a collection of all of those little shifts,
Yeah.
right? That little shift where with the popcorn in the movie theater,
Yeah.
that happened. Okay, that's a shift that happened. Maybe it took him a month of his life to find that shift, and then the next month, and that's how I changed all my habits. It was over the last 6 years, and every week or every month, I would try on something really small and new. I would not change all these things at once. So if you're interested in some of the things that I presented today, pick one for February. We're starting a new month on Monday. That's an amazing opportunity. So maybe you decide I'm going to listen to my Vivid Vision every day in February, and that's it. Then in March you can try something else. So it's really small changes that have big impact when, like we said, we set ourselves up for success. When you feel like you're succeeding, you will keep doing it. And
Yes.
that's done by not overcommitting and saying I'm going to work out for an hour. You can work out for an hour, but why don't you commit to 10 minutes? Because there is going to be a day during the week where you can't get an hour, and we want you to still feel like you're succeeding. So
Yeah. Thank you. There's so much. I want to like capture everything you're saying. This has been recorded, which is awesome. I know a lot of people ask, so you can go back and remember which of the ones that you want to practice for February. I think that's a great ask of everyone to try on one starting now or starting Monday if that feels better. And how can people like keep up? And if they want more of this, what's like the next step for them with you?
yeah, I mean, I don't like to be like salesy, but the truth is, like, Self-Care Society was made, the classes are 30 minutes long. You do a bunch of different self-care things. And we have all amazing guides. It's like unlimited classes. You can take any classes you want. There's, 100 to choose from in a month. And you're surrounding yourself in people who are like-minded and who are celebrating even the smallest victories. It's like, cool, I got out of bed today, or even like I chose not to get out of bed today, And so there's such beauty in the community. I mean, we see it here in the chat and everything, but I just feel deeply that it is so special. And I think if anyone tries it out and they're looking for some consistency, then you don't even have to think about your routine. You can just show up to class and you can do it while you're walking, or honestly, you can just listen in while you're, helping your kids with something. So you don't even have to be like fully engaged. It's just a really beautiful way to give yourself time to go inward. So I would love to have anyone there. And we did it's $9.99 for the month. We have yeah. So anyway, the deal, that's our special deal. So you have the code.
Never been a better time. And I'll send you all a follow-up email tomorrow that will have links to Self-Care Society and Danika's social and everything you need to keep in touch and all the discount codes. So yeah, with that, I just want to say thank you so much again. This has been so full, so exciting, so empowering. I hope everyone has, the motivation and is just ready to take on that next little thing, whatever it looks like, and start where you're at. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I'm so grateful. David asked if there was a guy's version. It is co-ed. We have more people who identify as women now, but we definitely have men in the community. So thank you so much. I am so grateful. I love Sigmatic. I've been using the products for so long. So this was such a treat. And I hope all of you who took the time to be here live took something away and that you can use. And if you need anything at all, please reach out. I'd love to support you.
Right on. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Danika, and everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye.